find me in a contemplative mood, a reflective mood, a what's this fighting all about kind of mood, a middle-aged kind of mood. And this was inspired by going back through the Kermode Uncut blogs and finding a few that I hadn't replied to. And I found one that really jumped out at me. It was from January earlier this year, and I hadn't replied to it before. But it got me thinking. It's from BGH 1968, who wrote, "Hi Mark, apart from directing Exorcist II: The Heretic, what is your problem with John Boorman as a director? He has some good movies in his filmography, Deliverance, Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific, and even guilty pleasures like Zardoz and Excalibur. Sure, he has been guilty of cinema crimes, but no more so than Friedkin, i.e. The Sorcerer, and Jade." And funnily enough, by a coincidence, as I was reading this email, on the television came Deliverance. And I started watching Deliverance again, which I haven't seen for a long time. And it's a really good movie. It's a really damn fine piece of early 70s cinema that's edgy and inventive and does something interesting with its source material. And clearly is the work of somebody who knows how to direct films. And I started asking myself, what is my problem with John Boorman? And here is the answer. In his early years, Boorman did those movies you've talked about, Leo the Last, Hell in the Pacific, Point Blank, and of course Deliverance. And then something happened. And what happened was this, and it may be a critic's fault. People started saying to Boorman, "You're a good filmmaker." You know what? You're not just a good filmmaker, you're an auteur. You're the kind of person about whom Michel Simon will write books saying how much of an auteur you are. John, you are a true artist. And then what happens? Zardoz, Exorcist II: The Heretic, The Emerald Forest, Where the Heart Is, Excalibur. All these films which I have fundamentally had a massive problem dealing with. Now, I started to wonder whether perhaps all my problems came down to my resentment about Exorcist II: The Heretic. And let me be quite clear. I hate Exorcist II: The Heretic for two reasons. One, it is clearly the worst film ever made by anyone ever. I know in the Golden Turkey Awards it comes in at number 2 after Plan 9 from Outer Space, but Ed Wood had no money. He had nothing to work with. John Boorman had an entire studio at his disposal, and look what he did. The second thing is that Exorcist II: The Heretic trashed my favourite movie of all time, and it seemed to me to be the work of somebody who had a contempt for The Exorcist and a contempt for the horror genre. In fact, I'm not just imagining this. If you read the accounts of Exorcist II: The Heretic, there's a fantastic paperback book, The Making of Exorcist II: The Heretic. We hear Boorman saying things like, well, the problem with the original was that I was trying with my sequel to repair the damage that the original had done. In fact, rumour has it that when Boorman saw the script for The Exorcist, he said, not only do I not want to direct this, I don't want anyone else to direct it either. He somehow felt that he was above horror. He somehow felt that the original was a shock fest and he could do something to remake the world with Exorcist II: The Heretic, and consequently made something that wasn't just terrible on its own terms, but terrible in what it did to a great film. But it's not just that. Zardoz is a similar problem. Zardoz is a science fiction film about Sean Connery in a red leather jockstrap that manages to be boring. Why is it boring? Because it's the work of somebody who doesn't think that science fiction is up to very much, who thinks, I am an artist, I am an auteur, I'm going to take a genre which is essentially trash, and I'm going to do something uplifting and interesting and full of ideas, unlike all those other people who make science fiction films. So, back to back pretty much, he makes two genre movies which seem to have contempt for the genre they came from, which of course is strange from somebody who's worked in the genre before. Now, is it true that my resentment of Exorcist II: The Heretic has effectively coloured everything else since then? You know, it grieves me to say it, but the fact is, of course, it's true. Nobody can make Deliverance, nobody can make a movie half as good as Deliverance and not have a residual spark of genius. And possibly the thing that has bothered me most about Boorman over the years is the fact that I know that somewhere in him he has the capability to make great work, and when he doesn't do it, I'm just more angry and more disappointed than usual. But really, is there any point in having that kind of grudge against a filmmaker in a world in which Michael Bay is probably the most financially successful filmmaker in the world? No. Clearly, the time has come to bury the hatchet. So, John, if you're watching this, and I'm sure you're not, I can't forgive you for Exorcist II: The Heretic. But you know what? Let's be friends. You're a great filmmaker. Make another film as good as Deliverance, and let's have a hug.